Welcome y'all, Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, it happened. I planted 14 different food plots over a 2-day period. We had 60 to 70% chance of rain, calling for 1.5 inches, possibly more. And guess what? I planted all those plots and we didn't get any rain. So today we're going to talk about what do we do now and some of the tactics that are used in the food plot industry to help some of these plots, watering some of these food plots. It has been about 3 weeks since our last significant rain. We've had a 10th here, a 10th there, nothing to speak of. But the last time that we had anything significant has been about 3 weeks. The soil is completely bone dry. And obviously I'm in a conventional tillage field here. You can see easily how dry the soil is here. I went to several of my no-till plots this morning, same type of scenario. They're bone dry as well. This has got to be one of the most frustrating parts about fall food plots year in and year out. The spring planted plots, typically the rain is not as big of an issue, but these fall plots, boy, timing and rain chances, it just seems like there's always a dry spell that sets up somewhere about the time we need to be planting these fall plots. This exact same thing happened last year. It led to a lot of people's food plot failures. And I've seen a lot of folks online talking about watering food plots to get them jump started and going. So today I wanted to talk about watering. What's the best way to do it? Should we do it? What does some of that math look like that we need to be able to actually do any good out here? So for a lot of you guys that haven't watched the channel for a long time, you know that I farm for a living. Grew up on a high value crop. We used to raise a ton of dark fired tobacco, and that was something that was a extremely high value crop around here, and that we watered every single year. If it got dry, we watered it. Didn't matter if it just needed one watering or if it needed watering all summer long, we watered it. It was very high value, and you could definitely make returns by watering that. So I've got a lot of experience with watering in a lot of different types of ways. The first thing that we got to look at when we're even thinking about watering is a water source. A lot of folks think when they go walk down into a creek and they see a little hole of water, maybe 10, 12 feet wide, 2 or 3 foot deep. Well, that's a lot of water right there. I can pull out of that and I can water my food plots. The reality of it is if you are putting water on bone dry soil, it takes a ridiculous amount of water to do any good. So what the math that we used to use when we were farming is if we were watering over the top, which that's what we're going to be doing with food plots if we decide to go that route, we're looking at around 30,000 gallons of water covers 1 acre, and that puts 1 inch of water on it. Okay, so the reason that we're putting 1 inch and not say a quarter or a ½ inch, if we're already dry enough to be watering, then a ½ inch is going to be gone so fast it's not even going to be funny. So if you're going to do it, you might as well put a significant amount of water on it like a rain. So 30,000 gallons of water is a significant amount of volume. That's a lot of water to be fooling with these full fall plots. But a lot of folks have small plots and they have some equipment. They may have a creek or a river close to them that's actually running water that you can pull out of and water those food plots and get those plots going. It's not something that I'd want to do all fall long by any stretch of the imagination at all. If I was going to water, I would try to get these plots established, give them a good watering or two, and then I'd want to be done. And at that point, their roots should be established enough that any dry spell that comes is not likely to kill that plot. At that point, it's still going to be able to grow. It's just going to sit there until it can get some rain. The issue is that we're having right now, I've got a lot of this plot out here that has actually came up. So we got a 10th one night. And if you followed any of my videos, that's the worst thing that could happen, is you get a 10th on seed that has been broadcasted on top, because that starts the germination process, but the soil is still dry. When that plant puts its root down, there's nothing to tap into, and it's sitting there just starving and starving and starving until you try to get another rain. Well, we don't have any rain to forecast. My 10-day forecast has absolutely 0 rain chances in it. We do have mild weather right now. We're in the 80s, but next week, we're forecasted to be in the high 90s. Really going to put a hurting on any food plots at that point, especially if they sit here and suffered for a week or two to get up to that point with no moisture in the soil, it's likely going to kill everything of mine that has come up. That's just the reality of these fall plots. These fall plots suck about 50% of the time. So if we are looking at watering, what are we looking at? And typically what we always used was 5-horse pumps. And what we would do is we'd take those and either put those in a pond or some sort of water source. And then we would spread overhead sprinklers out here with a 2-inch main that's got water hose connectors coming off of it. So we'd screw the water hose connector on, and then we'd fire it off and water the whole plot. Okay, and move it around however we need to move it around to be able to do that. Watering is not fun. It's one of those things that if you ever see it, you see, I don't know, many of you live in ag country, but if you drive by ag country and you see these big traveling machines, it's kind of like a spool of hose on a big spool rounded up like this. You pull that all the way out, and you got to have a tractor, you got to have a generator with power. Food plotters aren't going to have that. What we have at our disposal, the ones of us that do, is going to be a 5-horse pump and some sprinkler heads. That's what we're going to have to be able to establish these fall plots. You've got to decide if it is worth you being in there, spending a lot of time, putting a lot of cent down to save that plot, or are you better off just replanting? And for me, after fooling with watering for literally 10, 15 years, I'm not going to water any of my plots. I already got more food plot seed that I'm ready to go in the ground. I'm going to try to make the very best of a terrible situation. The next rain chance we get, whether it be mid-September, early October, whenever the next rain chance comes, I'll go broadcast these plots out here again, and hopefully we'll do better the second time. But that is a very frustrating part with these fall food plots, is waiting on this rain that may or may not show up. And I know a lot of folks are starting to wonder, man, what about watering? Should we just water? Watering definitely is going to help your plot out 100% if you've got that water source, but a lot of folks aren't going to have that water source. If you have an old pond that's pretty good size, you can get away with watering a couple times out of it and pulling that pond down pretty hard. But most of us don't have wells or anything like that at our farms. So we're either looking at no irrigation, or we're looking at doing, like I said, taking a 5-horse trash pump and hooking it up into some 2-inch PVC or 2-inch lay flat hose and running that to our fields and trying to water that way. We used to use drip tape, and that's the easiest and the cheapest way to do it, no question about it. Drip tape's super handy. It's basically you take this black hose, this very low pressure hose, and essentially like if you have a square, you run your 2-inch line off the end, and then you run your black drip hose, you know, every say 30 inches or 20 inches or however you want them. They don't run on any pressure to speak of. I think they're running like 7 to 10 pounds of pressure. So when you get those done, you're getting a good slow water is what you're getting. And so you're a lot more efficient with your water. You don't have a lot of evaporation going on. It's a great way to water crops, but with food plots, I don't know that I would recommend that at all. If I was going to water any, it would probably be the overhead sprinklers, where I could come in at a night, get this thing set up, water it for 12 or 24 hours, and then pull out and be done. Get it good and soaked, get a little bit of the soil recharged for some moisture, and then head out. But if you start this process, it is a long road ahead. So I wanted to kind of make this video and let you know that this is not a super easy task, and it takes a tremendous amount of water to water a food plot like this and to actually do any good. Because if we're just putting a little water on top, we're not doing anything. It's the same thing as a 1/10 inch rain or a 1/4 inch. We're not getting enough to actually recharge that soil any or give that plant any water to speak of. We got to put a significant amount down, at a minimum 30,000 gallons per acre. Is what I would recommend. And probably just for food plots, we're trying to get off the plot as quick as we can and get out of the human intrusion. I think we're probably looking at closer to 45,000 gallons per acre rather than the 30. That would give it a good inch and a half of rain. And at that point, you feel pretty good about your fall food plots. I know this video is not going to apply to a ton of folks, but I wanted to make the video out just in case some of my viewers are thinking about possibly watering. I wanted them to know, you know, how many gallons that we're looking at, how much water we're needed out here, and some of the different tactics we can use to get some of this water on these food plots to really help them do good. So thank you guys so much for watching. y'all smash that like and subscribe button.